Okay, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today is going to be that video. So obviously bear with me guys, God only knows how many times I've tried to film this video, but anyway, so today I'm going to be breaking down, or should I say attempting to break down the double bell BYT. So I know you guys have been waiting for one of these videos for a while where we do tear down a double bell, and the reason for that is obviously there have been the questions, we have seen them about the whole sort of what is wrong with double bell, why are they so cheap, are they inferior, what is the story with double bell. So to sort of answer those questions, we have been planning on tearing one of these down, and we are going to be doing that with you guys today. So for the argument's sake, I'm going to be taking down the double bell, the BYT, which is this weapon over here right in front of me, or this one right here in the box, as you guys see right there. So this is your entry-level weapon from double bell. So I'm going to be tearing that down alongside a GNG CM16 Raider. So for those of you guys who don't know, the CM16 Raider is sort of the same spectrum as the BYT. It's the same sort of weapon, or same line of gun. It's entry level. There's nothing really fancy about them. There's no MOSFETs, no ETUs, anything like that. They are purely designed as a base gun to get new players involved, make it a bit more affordable, and then you can sort of build up from there. So I'm going to be tearing those down side by side, literally getting the gearboxes out the bodies and tearing them down side by side and showing you guys what is actually going on the inside of the double bells. Not answering the question as to why they're so cheap, because that's very internal, but to answer the questions about if they're inferior, or you know, is there something wrong with them, I'm going to be answering those questions for you guys. So let's get straight on into it. Let's tear down a BYT and a CM16 Raider. So let's get the gearboxes out and let's tear them down side by side. Okay guys, as you can see, so obviously now I've got the two gearboxes out. I did skip the whole process of removing the gearboxes from the lower halves of the bodies. It's pretty boring to watch, very self-explanatory, it's really not that hard to do, so I've just gone ahead and skipped that process. So I do apologize for those of you guys who wanted to watch that, but it's boring, so let's not do that. So let's just jump straight into the internal. So obviously GNG double bell. So first things you want to notice is obviously your motor differences. So the GNG obviously comes out with a standard 18K motor, which is majority of the time the sort of standard go-to motor the GNG uses, even on some of their uprange guns, like even the the GNG ARP9 3.0. Finally, I actually got that right, but that is one of their newest guns, and that still comes out with an 18K motor, so nothing wrong with that motor whatsoever. However, the double bell steps it up as per usual and comes out with a 20K motor, and this is obviously in their entry-level weapons. It's not advertised, it's not marked, but it is a 20K motor as provided from the factory, so keep that in mind. But then again, you're not really going to notice too much of a performance difference between these two, but just a nice little feature that they do come out with a step-up motor than what most manufacturers would. The second thing that you want to notice is obviously the gearboxes right here. So one of the first things you're going to notice is the fact that double bell has a CNC air nozzle in comparison to the plastic air nozzle. So this is pretty much the standard along the range. I know a couple of manufacturers, things like Crytek and those sort of guys, did at one stage release guns with CNC nozzles from the factory. Not very often though, but it does happen. Do you mind? So not very often, but it does happen. I know also a lot of the sort of upmarket range of GNGs also came out of the whole of CNC internals, but obviously that's a completely different sort of level of gun, because obviously you do get different levels, but don't hold me to it. Generally speaking, the standard is plastic internals, as you guys are seeing here, whereas double bell have stepped that up, obviously with that CNC nozzle. Another thing that you want to notice is the double bell has the quick release gearbox, whereas GNG doesn't. Now this isn't neither here nor there, it's not going to make too much of a huge difference on it, it's really not that big of a deal, but it is going to make your life a little bit easier when it comes to maintenance, because obviously you can remove pretty much all the tension from inside the gearbox before actually opening it, and that is probably one of the most daunting tasks about working on these things. So if you guys are new to it, or you're planning on working on your own guns, a quick release spring is obviously going to make your life a little bit easier. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be the be-all and the end-all of the whole thing, so just keep that in mind. Another thing that's interesting to note is double bell coming out with ball bearing bushings straight from the factory, whereas GNG, along with most other manufacturers you will see, are fitted with just these sort of standard bushings. Now, I'm not 100% sure if these are copper or brass, but this is the general sort of standard of what we've come to expect from guns now on the market. They do come out with just these sort of bushings. It is normally something that most guys will replace and go over to ball bearings for obvious reasons, but obviously to keep costs down, they will just run with standard bushings, whereas double bell have gone ahead and taken that step for you and given you ball bearing bushings. So yeah, that being said, now that's pretty much everything that I can say on the outside of the gearbox. So let's go ahead and tear these two down, open them up, and then I'll show you guys what's going on the inside there, and you guys can see for yourself, and then hopefully at the end of this video you guys can make a decision for yourself. So I have gone ahead and opened the gearbox for you guys. So obviously G&G double bell. So for future reference, everything left hand side is double bell, everything right hand side is G&G. So obviously, like I pointed out, first thing you're going to notice is those CNC nozzles. So this is where majority of your sort of differences are going to be coming in, as that is right here in your cylinders, or as some of you guys like to call it, compression chambers. I don't know why, but that's where that's where majority of your work is going to be. So let's get on to those just now. So obviously, internally comparing, they are pretty much both exactly the same. Like I said, I did manage to do the comparison between two guns that are both entry level. So what you will notice is they both have the same kind of system on the trigger, which is just your standard analog triggers. The gears, I'm not going to go ahead and say too much on that, because I will never fault G&G's gears. These things are absolutely incredible. In all the years that I've been working on these things, these G&G gears just never ever seem to fail. Like, I've seen some mad catastrophic failures on some builds that guys have done, and if it's got G&G gears in it, somehow the gears always come out untouched, never any damage on them. So shout out to G&G for their gears. That being said, the double bell gears have proven themselves to me as well. I have seen a lot of guys that are buying double bells, should I say, because they are the sort of perfect test bed or the perfect base gun for all sorts of upgrades, and that's what a lot of guys have been doing with them, which is actually pretty awesome. However, the double bell gears, I have yet to see a set fail. Yes, they are still new in the country, there's not many guys running them, but I've seen some nasty things go wrong with some of the guys' builds, and these gears seem to come out on top pretty much all the time. So just bear that in mind. So the gears on both double bell and G&G are both pretty strong. I don't think anyone's going to have an issue there. The one difference is the fact double bell comes out with delayer chips from the factory. Not many manufacturers have done that. I think Vulcan did it once upon a time. I know Classic Army did it for a while as well, but that is something that we haven't seen for years, is the delayer chip from the factory. So that's a pretty awesome little feature, just so everyone knows. So let's move away from gearbox internals, because at the end of the day, those are pretty much exactly the same. This is where your differences lie. So obviously, plastic piston head, single O-ring. Not that there's a problem with that, but just know. Plastic air nozzle, plastic cylinder head, standard cylinder, nothing fancy whatsoever. And of course, decent air seal, but you are still getting quite a bit of air loss regardless. And obviously, in the nature of the gun, when these things are actually moving at the rate they're supposed to be doing, you will notice a better sort of seal, of course, but nevertheless, yeah. On the double bell, however, you've got a double O-ring CNC piston head. That on its own is an upgrade part as such. So 9 times out of 10, to put these into your weapons, this is a part that you have to buy aftermarket and then install yourself, or have someone like me install it for you. So these coming out from the factory, this is a big step up, because obviously now this is an upgrade now that you don't have to do. So just keep that in mind. You do have your double O-ring CNC piston head, and of course a CNC nozzle, CNC air nozzle. So obviously this is where majority of air loss comes from. Sorry, of course, a plastic piston head, cylinder head, and standard nozzle, nothing fancy. Now some models of double bell, as you go further up the line, will come out with CNC piston heads, but obviously these being entry level, they are still keeping it with the polymer piston heads, or cylinder heads, sorry, should I say. I keep getting confused between those two, my bad. But yeah, so you will find them with polymer piston heads regardless. However, zero air seal. Even without the air nozzle, nothing, absolutely no air seal whatsoever. So from the factory, fully upgraded. Look, obviously there is one thing about the double bells that I don't agree with personally, but at the end of the day, everyone has their own opinion on this, and that is the full steel tooth pistons that they come out with, in comparison to most other guns where you will have a plastic rack the whole way through. The reason why I prefer plastic racks is obviously, should something go wrong inside the gearbox here, internally, catastrophic failure, whatever the case may be, I would much rather shear a piston and replace a piston, which is a cheap part in comparison to changing gears. Unfortunately, in this particular country, gears are pretty expensive. It is unfortunately just the nature of the beast. It's how it's always going to be. It's how it's always been. So generally speaking, I prefer plastic rack teeth or plastic racked pistons, whereas Double Bell come out with the full metal, which is, again, it's a personal preference. It's not to say there's anything wrong here. It is a nice little feature that it does come out with that, because obviously, you know, longevity and that sort of thing, and obviously in its standard form you shouldn't have anything to worry about, but yeah, just a personal preference, just to note. So that being said, now that you guys have seen the inside of these internally, you know, seeing how the sort of innards work and what you actually get from the factory, I hope this pretty much answers the questions as to, is there anything inferior with Double Bell? The answer to that is no. If anything, and this is not just my opinion, this is a sort of majority opinion, that Double Bell is actually better than most guns from the factory because of what you're getting with it. You know, value for money, upgrade parts, that sort of stuff. The only real upgrades anyone would really do to a Double Bell is pretty much electronic trigger units, and that's obviously just going to give you better fire rates or better fire rates, better options to obviously customize, and different fire modes, and you know, all those other little fancy things that you guys know about MOSFETs. So pretty much the only upgrade you can do, but from the factory the guns are fully upgraded, so to speak. So no, they are not inferior. If there's anything wrong with them, no. The answer to that question is no. No, there's definitely nothing wrong with them. As for why they're so cheap, once again, it is an internal thing, so I can't get into it, but essentially they are able to produce these weapons at a much lower cost than most of their competitors. I nearly said superiors. Most of their competitors, which therefore means that us as an agent can then bring it forward to you guys at a much better price, obviously. So that's the reason pretty much as to why they're so cheap, is purely because they can manufacture it cheaper, which means that we can get it cheaper, which means that we can offer it to the market a whole lot cheaper. And that is just the nature of the beast with Double Bell. And obviously, as you guys saw internal wise, no, there's nothing inferior about them, there's nothing wrong with them. It's purely just a whole lot of good things all coming together essentially, and no, it is not too good to be true. So that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown and seeing the internals of these Double Bells in comparison to most other guns, and hopefully this answers some of the questions for you guys that have been considering getting Double Bells but are maybe just a little bit put off by the price. Understandably so, because in airsoft you get what you pay for, and hopefully this now answers the questions that Double Bell is not one of those scenarios. So that being said, guys, as always, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, keep us going, and we'll catch you guys in the next video. So as always, stay classy, and above all, call those hits, and we'll see you guys in the next video.